Keep up to date everywhere. News Talk 820 WBAP.
In the WBAP newsroom.
7:48 right now. Our legal expert Byron Henry joins us right now. We've got breaking news and a tweet from the president saying he has made his selection as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, and he will announce it.
Wow.
Tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We may get into that with Byron if we've got enough time. But Byron, let's talk about what occurred over the weekend. Obviously, protests everywhere, the implementation of this executive order. Then a judge stepped in to delay this issue and to allow travelers to actually continue on with their travel, but now we're hearing some custom folks didn't agree with it and didn't abide by it. Where do we stand right now? What are the legal basis for both of these?
Well, first and foremost, let's cut it into two different portions. The first portion, Brian, is that there were people in transit that were affected by this order, people either on the ground in the airport or traveling. And so those are the people that it specifically affected. And the real question to the judge and in these court cases, well, what do you do with those people that are affected by the order that were kind of in mid-transit coming to the United States that either have visas or had already been approved? And what a judge said was you cannot send them back to their country until the judge has a chance to have a hearing and vet this process. With respect to the remainder of the order, at least until now, it's a temporary pause, basically a pushing of the pause button on the refugee program and immigration from these 7 countries of concern that have been noted as countries of concern with respect to terrorism going all the way back into the Obama administration. So that's been unaffected so far. But most of the protests were just generally about suspending immigration. But the specific issues with lawyers at airports and customs officials were people that were basically affected by the order but were not to be returned to their country, according to the judge, until the judge could have a hearing.
So where is this going to go then? I mean, if we have all these sides and everything, as it stands right now, is it legal for these 7 countries, people from these 7 countries, to come into our country?
Right now, it is not. The issue there is, as I've said before, the Constitution doesn't give any rights to actually visit this country, move to this country, become a citizen of this country. The Constitution doesn't grant those rights. Congress has plenary authority over immigration, whether it's temporary work visas or tourists or whatever. It has to do with non-U.S. citizens coming to this country, whether it's green cards or permanent residents. Congress has authority over that. So what we end up having is the Congress has given authority to the President and in some cases the Department of Homeland Security or the Justice Department to handle these programs, whether it's the refugee program, as you heard a lot about President Obama's handling of the Syrian refugees and allowing them in. There were some questions whether or not they were being properly vetted. But the president has a lot of discretion in this area with respect to how to deal with these programs Congress has implemented. And in this case, what the president has said, as he said on the campaign trail, President Trump said, I'm going to review these programs. And that's, in fact, what he's doing is pushing the pause button and going to review these programs for 120 days and make sure that the proper vetting is taking place.
All right, we want to follow up on that after we check traffic.
Byron Henry is with us this morning. Byron, let me ask you, this is an executive order or a judge's decision? Which one is more powerful?
Well, I mean, they're both powerful because one comes from the head of one branch of government and the other comes from another branch of government. The issue of whether or not the executive order is consistent with federal law, the final word on that issue will be from a court. In other words, if President Trump, especially with respect to people that are already here or were in transit, President Trump can implement the law in a different way than President Obama under congressional federal law, but he cannot break federal law. He has to be consistent with federal law, and that's what the courts are for. They will say whether or not President Trump overextended himself or broke federal law or the order is outside his authority. The issue here is most of it is temporary, except for the people that were here. So this order is not President Trump's final word on an immigration plan. It is just a temporary stay while he can review how it was being implemented under President Obama. So I expect it to expire before the whole order works its way through the courts, but a court will end up deciding, and the court will have the final say on that issue.
Byron, got about a minute left. I wanted to hit you up real quick. President Trump has announced that he does have a pick now for the Supreme Court. He will announce that pick tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Give us some indication as to maybe who this might be or what he was looking for in a nominee.
Well, he said himself he was looking for a nominee who would apply the law. He was looking for an originalist in the mold of the late Justice Antonin Scalia. And I believe, just based on what I've read and just following all the reports, that there are two front runners, and those are Judges Gorsuch from the 10th Circuit. He's at Denver-based, and Judge Hardiman out of the 3rd Circuit in Philadelphia. A lot of people say Judge Hardiman has the edge because he actually serves with Trump's sister, President Trump's sister, on the 3rd Circuit, so he could get some insight on him as a nominee. But most in the circles say one of those two people, both relatively reliable conservatives, both not outspoken, both understated, so they're not firebrands, but they seem to be in the lead right now, or the favorites for getting that post.
All right, be ready Wednesday morning. We'll be visiting with you to get some reaction as it comes out Tuesday night.
It'll leak.
Yeah, I think it'll
leak.
Yeah. He might leak it himself.
Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
7:56.